If you have an addict or an alcoholic in your life, chances are you're angry, frustrated, worried, scared, a lot of emotions. We totally understand. We've worked with a lot of families going through the same thing that you're going through right now. You want them to get help. You would love for them to not have this addiction, but you don't know what to do. This is why we put together Family Reconnect. This is a program that is designed to put you first. Ultimately, if you help yourself, you can help them. In this, we're going to teach you how to set appropriate boundaries. We're going to teach you how to communicate effectively. We're going to teach you how to go into situations with your addict loved one that is going to be effective. A lot of times, family members and loved ones, they act out of emotion. We get that, we understand. But all that does is make it worse. You need people to come alongside you that can walk this journey with you. So starting on June 3rd, we are going live. We want you to be a part of this community. Because remember, you didn't cause this. You can't cure it, and you definitely can't control it. So June 3rd is when we're going live. You can find all the information at realrecoverytalk.com/FRC. Again, it's realrecoverytalk.com/FRC. We're excited to go on this journey with you, and we'll see you on June 3rd. Hey everybody, here we are, week 7. Today we're getting into the first half of More About Alcoholism. There's some real gems in here that you don't want to miss. Eric goes into this in extreme detail. He gets personal about his life with something that tragically happened when he was younger. And he talks about his relapse and how it came after many years of sobriety. So here we are, first half of More About Alcoholism. Enjoy.
Hey, everyone out there on the World Wide Web. It's good to be back. Let's open this with a moment of silence followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And here we are, we're getting into More About Alcoholism. And last week we did There Is a Solution. We talked about a little bit about the solution, the part of the fellowship, and then we talked about the actual good news that this book carries is the spiritual program of action. That's the solution. And we talked about the spiritual program of action in those 12 steps, and we really drove home how it's all about change. The purpose of this program, the purpose of this book is to affect a spiritual experience significant enough to bring about a complete psychic change, an improved shift in thought and behavior. So now we're going to go into More About Alcoholism, and we're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to talk a lot more about the lie. We're going to talk about the lie that our mind tells us. So it's one thing to know, we talk about being armed with the facts about ourselves. We found a man who was armed with the facts about himself. To be armed with the facts about myself, that means that I know the lie. I have to understand the way my mind lies to me. So we're going to start on page 30. I have so much writing in my book that I write over the page numbers, but we're going to start on page 30 and More About Alcoholism. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been, and I love the way Bill W. always calls it a drinking career. That's exactly what my life became. My alcoholism became a career. Our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people or presently may be has to be smashed. And I put an emphasis on 4 words there. Bill W., the man who wrote this book, he was an absolute wordsmith. And he took a writing class back in college, and there he learned never to use the same word more than once in a certain amount of time to convey the same thought. And so you'll see throughout his writing, he just uses a multitude of words to say the same thing, a multitude of ways to say the same thing. Here he uses 4 words to describe the same thing, to describe the lie. The first one that he uses is the great obsession. What's an obsession? An obsession is a thought so powerful it makes you believe a lie. That's an obsession. The next one is he says the someday he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession, the great lie of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. And what's an illusion? Well, what's an illusionist? We've all heard of an illusionist. An illusionist is a magician. What's a magician do? A magician, through trickery, through sleight of hand, through smoke and mirrors, will make you believe something that is not true. Make you believe a lie. So the persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. Insanity does not mean stark raving mad. It simply means not whole up here. So I cannot see the truth about something. I have an abnormal perception, an absolutely out of whack perception of something. That's what insanity means. I cannot see the truth. We pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we're like other people or presently maybe has to be smashed. And if you are deluding yourself, you are believing a lie. Self-deception. If I'm deluding myself, I'm absolutely believing a lie. So there he uses 4 words to describe a lie, and that's what it is. I drink on that lie every time. I don't drink on the truth. I drink on the lie. It goes on, it says, we alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic, and we already described in the last chapter what a real alcoholic is, that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. To believe anything else is to believe a lie. If you're a real alcoholic like I am, and I was sober for 7 years, and after 7 years I thought, yeah, I'm older now. It's going to be different this time. I can drink like a gentleman now, and I picked up a drink after 7 years of sobriety on that lie, the absolute lie that this time it's going to be different. And I picked up that drink and I went out for 9 years. I did not drink on the truth. Had I known the truth at the time of what being a real alcoholic meant, my mind would have said, okay, I'm going to pick up a drink and I'm going to burn my life down after 7 years of sobriety. But that's not what my mind told me. My mind said, yeah, you've been around some now. Girl told me, you're not an alcoholic. I said, yeah, you've been around some. You've seen some things, life and death. You're older now. You can handle it. Well, I couldn't. I believed that lie. I fell victim to that lie. And here Bill W. is going to use we're going to use 3 examples of the lie. We're going to, and in using these examples, we're going to point out how these 3 men, we're going to use actually 4 of them. We're going to use the man of 32 years. We're going to use Jim and a gentleman named Jim and a gentleman named Fred. And then we're going to use the jaywalker. We'll probably only get to a couple of them today. But in these 4 examples, these men, we're going to look at the lie each time that they drank on. So we know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. To believe anything else is a lie. This is the truth. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Any true alcoholic can relate to that sentence right there, led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible, which means I just don't understand this. Demoralization. I was morally bankrupt, and I didn't understand how this kept happening to me. I didn't understand it because I didn't know my truth. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness over any considerable period. We get worse, never better. To believe anything else is to believe a lie. But my mind will tell me this. That's the great obsession. We are like men who have lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there has been brief recovery followed always by a still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there is no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Science may one day accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. That was in 1939. 2025, science still hasn't accomplished it. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe they're in that class. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. And what is self-deception? It's a lie. Self-deception cannot spot self-deception. If I'm deceiving myself, I have absolutely no way of knowing that. I had to have that pointed out to me by men in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. If anyone who is showing an inability to control his drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. Heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. And that right there, heaven knows we've tried hard enough and long enough. Listen, I didn't get here. I didn't get to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous because I had a bad weekend. I got here because I had a bad 2.5 decades. And I definitely had tried hard and long enough, every form of self-deception, to drink like a gentleman. Here are some of the methods we have tried. Drinking beer only, limiting the number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wines, agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing off forever with or without a solemn oath, taking more physical exercise, reading inspirational books, going to health farms and sanitariums, or detoxes and rehabs, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums or rehabs. We could increase the list ad infinitum. We do not like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. Step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. What is that? Try to drink and stop abruptly. Try it more than once. It will not take long for you to decide. If you're honest with yourself about it, it may be worth a bad case of jitters to get a full knowledge of your condition. Though there is no way of proving it, we believe that early in our drinking careers, most of us could have stopped drinking, but the difficulty is that few alcoholics have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. We have heard a few instances where people who showed definite signs of alcoholism were able to stop for a long period because of an overpowering desire to do so. And so an overpowering desire to stop for a while. We're going to look at a man who stopped and stopped for quite a long time. We're going to look at the lie that he picked up a drink on. So this is the man of 30. A man of 30 was doing a great deal of spree drinking. Now, anytime we talk about spree, anytime they use the word spree, they're talking about the allergy. And throughout this book, when they talk about the allergy, I'm going to point out that's because of the allergy. And when they refer to the obsession, I will point out that's because of the obsession. So spree drinking, that's because of the allergy. Otherwise, it would just be a couple of drinks. But he's doing quite a bit of deal of spree drinking because he's got that allergy. He was very nervous in the morning after these bouts and quieted himself with more liquor. He was ambitious to succeed in business, but saw that he would get nowhere if he drank at all. Once he started, he had no control whatever. He made up his mind that until he had been successful in business and had retired, he would not touch another drop. An exceptional man, he remained bone dry for 25 years and retired at the age of 55. 25 years this guy stayed sober after a successful and happy business career. Then he fell victim to a belief, a lie, which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink as other men. Out came his carpet slippers in a bottle. In 2 months, he was in a hospital, puzzled and humiliated. He tried to regulate his drinking for a while, making several trips to the hospital meantime. Then, gathering all his forces, he attempted to stop altogether, found he could not. Every means of solving his problem that money could buy was at his disposal. This guy had all the doctors he could want. He had all the money he needed to solve any other problem. Every attempt failed. Though a robust man at retirement, he went to pieces quickly and was dead within 4 years from picking up that drink. Stayed sober 25 years, fell victim to the lie, picked up the drink, triggered the allergy. He was dead in 4 years, which kicked in the obsession. The guy's dead in 4 years. This contains a powerful lesson. Most of us have believed that if we remain sober for a long stretch, we could thereafter drink normally. But here's a man who at 55 years found he was just where he had left off at 30. We have seen the truth demonstrated again and again, and here it comes the truth. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And to believe anything else is to believe a lie. That's the obsession. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we're in a short time as bad as ever. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. No lurking notion, no idea that someday I'm going to be able to control this. That is the great lie that we drink on. And I have a personal experience with this. I've been sober since 2018. So I've been sober going on 7 years now. I was sober 7 years between 2003 and 2010, taking care of my wife at the time. She was terminally ill. We had to move to Duke Hospital, Durham, North Carolina. She underwent a bilateral lung transplant, and she survived 5 years after that transplant. And she had a rare condition. She succumbed to it at 35 years old. But I took care of her for 7 years, and I was with her when she passed. And I didn't know the first thing about Alcoholics Anonymous. I stayed sober with a God of my understanding. I was being of service because I had an outreach to inner city boys through a martial arts program that I did. And I had a purpose, taking care of the one most loved. But what I did not have was my truth. I didn't have a step one. I didn't know this program. I worked a lot of these other steps indirectly through my faith. But when I set down the drink in 2003, I would have told you I was an absolute alcoholic, even though I didn't really know what that meant. But I knew that I was drinking and drugging against my will. But what we read in there is a solution about the hard drinker, the heavy drinker, who may be experiencing physical consequences. He might be shaken. He might need to go to detox even, it says. Right? This guy might even die a few years before his time. So this guy is in bad shape. Most people look at this guy and say, hey, he's an alcoholic. But it goes on and it says, but given the right reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, this man may be able to stop or moderate, although he may need medical attention. It says right there, you may need to send this guy off to rehab. But when he comes out, he can stop or moderate. But then it says, what about the real alcoholic, the one who has bottles hidden everywhere, who no matter what the consequence, cannot stop drinking because of the allergy and the obsession? What about that guy, right? Well, in 2003, when I put down that drink and I moved to North Carolina, change of environment, falling in love, I was married to a woman who was ill. The advice of a doctor, I had to take care of her. Maybe when I put that drink down, maybe I was the heavy drinker, the hard drinker. I don't know, but I know that when I picked it up in 2010, nothing could get me to stop. Nothing. Homelessness. I became a homeless alcoholic. My son watched me at 17 years old become a homeless alcoholic, and nothing could stop me. Maybe I became the real alcoholic in those 7 years of sobriety, because it tells us that over a period of time, we always get worse, never better, over any period of time, whether we're drinking during that period of time or not. It's a progressive disease. That's my truth. When I picked it up in 2010, nothing could stop me, just like this man who, after 25 years, he was able to stop 25 years earlier on an overwhelming desire to do so. Maybe he crossed that line in his sobriety as well. So it goes on, it says, young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop as he did on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it, because none will really want to stop, and hardly one of them, because of the peculiar mental twist already acquired, will find he can win out. And that peculiar mental twist is the obsession that it's the lie that precedes the first drink. Several of our crowd, men of 30 or less, have been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves as helpless as those who have been drinking 20 years. To be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time, nor take the quantity some of us have. This is particularly true of women. Potential female alcoholics often turn into the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Certain drinkers who would be greatly insulted if called alcoholics are astonished at their inability to stop. Their inability to stop no matter the consequence. We who are familiar with the symptoms see large numbers of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere, but try and get them to see it. As we look back, we had gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our own willpower. If anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for 1 year. If he is a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there is scant chance of success. And you see this every year at New Year's, right? At New Year's Day, right? We see this all the time. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remained sober for a year or more, becoming serious drinkers again later. Though you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay dry anything like a year. Some will be drunk the day after making their resolutions. Most of them within a few weeks, it says. So when we go back and we talk about the allergy and the obsession, it's the obsession. It tells us throughout this book the disease centers in the mind. I can have the allergy and I can go on the spree. It's when I'm stark raving sober. And I have all these consequences that my mind tells me, yeah, it's a good idea to pick up a drink again. If I didn't have the obsession, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this. I'd go on a spree. I'd do that a couple times, and I'd say, well, I'm never doing that again. That's caused me too much trouble. But that's not what happens. My mind over the years just keeps telling me, no, here's how you can do it again. So that's why they say the disease centers in the mind. So what's my real problem? My real problem is the obsession. God's never going to relieve me of that allergy, no more than he is a peanut allergy. If I have a peanut allergy, I use this analogy all the time. I eat peanuts, my throat closes up, I break out in hives, I can't breathe, I get incredibly sick from the allergy to the peanuts. If I pick up peanuts again 30 years from now, I'm going to recover from the sickness. But if I pick up peanuts again 30 years from now, I'm going to get sick all over again from eating those peanuts. And I'm going to have to recover all over again. But that's not going to happen because I don't have a mind that tells me, hey, you know what? It's a good idea to eat peanuts again. You haven't tried this brand. Maybe Skippy peanut butter will be different. That would be insane. If every time I ate shellfish, I got deathly ill. Next week I'm at a friend's house and he's on that shrimp really looks good. Let me try it again. That would be insane. That's what I do with alcohol. It's absolutely no different. So going on in the middle of page 34, for those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. And here it comes. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. That's a big assumption. Because if you don't want to stop, there's nothing in the world that I can say or do that's going to make you stop. Nobody could get me to stop until the pain got great enough for me. So we're assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. Many of us felt that we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever, yet we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it, this utter inability to leave it alone no matter how great the necessity or wish. It's an important sentence right there. The utter inability to leave it alone no matter how great the necessity or the wish. In plain English right there, for anyone who's not an alcoholic, for any family member who is watching this right now, that's exactly what it is for me. I have an utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. I wanted to stop. I knew what I was doing. I did not want to do that, but I couldn't. I could not stop drinking. How then shall we help our readers determine to their own satisfaction whether they are one of us? The experiment of quitting for a period of time will be helpful, but we think we can render an even greater service to alcoholic sufferers and perhaps to the medical fraternity. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking. For obviously, this is the crux of the problem. Crux of the problem is the mental state that precedes the relapse into drinking. It's that mental blank spot. It's that obsession. It's that lie. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? Time after time of the first drink. So I'm stark raving sober. I put it down. I've got all these consequences in my past. Wife telling me I got to quit, all this, but yet I'm picking up that drink. Well, I'm going to do it again. It's going to be okay. And here's how. The first drink. Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree, and the spree is why? Because of the allergy. Otherwise, it would just be a drink. But alcoholics don't just have drinks, we have sprees. So after a spree, because he has an allergy, which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy, they are mystified when he walks directly into a saloon. Why does he? Of what is he thinking? So the next example, and we're going to finish with this example, we're going to look at the thought process of a man named Jim. Okay, and we're going to look at all of his rational, normal thoughts right up into the point that the insanity kicks in and he takes the first drink. So our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He had a commendable World War record. He's a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He is an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. This guy's got some anxiety. He did no drinking until he was 35. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be committed. Upon leaving the rehab, it says asylum here, upon leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us. We told him what we knew about alcoholism. So here's Jim, that this guy inherited a lucrative automobile agency, and then he lost it, which we're going to read here in a minute, because of his drinking. But they told him what they knew about alcoholism. That's step one. So Bill and Bob get together and they do step one with Jim. They told him what they knew about alcoholism and the answer we had found. So they told him what alcoholism was, step one. They told him what the solution was, step two. So they do a step one and a step two with old Jim here, right? We had found he made a beginning. So he does a step three. He makes a beginning. It tells us at the end of step three, this was just a beginning. He makes the beginning. His family was reassembled. So what you're seeing here is Jim does what in AA we call the 1, 2, 3 shuffle. People do it all the time. They do step one, they do step two, they do step three, they hold their sponsor's hand, and they say the third step prayer. Now they've got God. Why would they go on and do the rest of the steps? Why wouldn't they just do step 1, 2, and 3? Because God's my pilot now. I'm good. I've got God now. Right? And they don't do steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Instead, they start reading books by Emmett Fox and other spiritual books, and they got their big book way over here, and they got all these other books, and they're lifted right up and out of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I see it happen all the time. I heard a Catholic priest one time in Alcoholics Anonymous say, if I had come here and you guys had told me all I needed was to let go and let God, I would have said fantastic. And I would have gone home, and with my hands at my side, I would have said, okay, God, I am now ready to let you make me sober. And he said I would have died a drunk. I'd have died drunk. Because God's not coming down and doing a 4-step for me. God's not coming down and doing a 5th step for me. God's not coming down and making amends for me. I had to do that stuff, right? And I believe that in Alcoholics Anonymous, this is why we see this all so often, this 1, 2, 3 shuffle and out. And it's exactly what Jim does here. So it goes on. It says we told him what we knew of alcoholism, step 1. The answer we found, step 2. He made a beginning, step 3. His family was reassembled, and he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. Bad idea. This guy loses a business, and now he's got to work for that guy. Do you think the guy's got a resentment? Most likely, right? All went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life by doing steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Bill W. tells us the alcoholic who fails to enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others will not survive the certain trials and low spots that lie ahead. And that's what he does here. He fails to enlarge his spiritual life. To his consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. 6 times in rapid succession. And then on each of these occasions, we worked with him. These are good members of Alcoholics Anonymous right now. They didn't kick him to the curb and tell him, you got to go find someone else because you relapsed. No, they said, sit down. Let's figure this out. And they kept working with him. These are good members of Alcoholics Anonymous right here. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He agreed he was a real alcoholic and in a serious condition. He knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family for whom he had a deep affection. Yet he got drunk again. 7th time now. Jim gets drunk the 7th time. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. So this time, again, instead of kicking him to the curb and telling him to find somebody else, they grab old Jim, they sit him down, and they say, you're going to tell me you're going to tell us exactly what happened, and we're going to go through this step by step. This is his story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. I remember I felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned, probably a little more than irritated. I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Boss might see that different, right? Then I decided to drive into the country to see one of my prospects for a car. That is an absolutely normal thought process. They didn't have car lots back then. If you're a car salesman back then, you're going to drive out into the country to see a guy about a car. That's absolutely normal thought process. But I guarantee you, on that drive out into the country, Jim was probably and talking in his head to his boss the whole time, just running that movie over, right? Resentful, irritated, but perfectly normal thought. I'm going to drive into the country to see one of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. Well, if you're riding past a place that has and you're hungry, you're going to stop at a place. It doesn't matter that he says that he's stopped there before. I'm going to stop at a place. Absolutely normal thought process. I had no intention of drinking. We're not going to drink in there. Again, normal thought process. I just thought I would get a sandwich. Absolutely normal thought. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place. Again, a normal thought. He has brochures for his cars, and maybe there's a person here that'll buy a car from him. I had eaten there many times during the months I was sober, so he's eaten there before sober. It doesn't matter that they got a bar. He's been in there before. It's the only place around to eat. Absolutely normal thought. I sat down at a table and ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. That sounds like a normal thing to eat for lunch, a sandwich and a glass of milk, normal thought. I ordered another sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk. Well, he's hungry. Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. Absolutely insane thought. Normal thought, stop, get a sandwich, have a glass of milk, find a guy to buy a car in here possibly, put whiskey in my milk. There's the insane thought right there. After everything this guy's been through and all these guys are working with him, that's an insane thought. I ordered a whiskey and poured it into my milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being too smart, but felt reassured as I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. Insane thought. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk. What does he mean it went so well? How did it go well? Why are you having another one? Because you didn't get drunk off the first one? Or because you triggered that phenomenon of craving, and now you have to have that. That first one that you picked up, that was a choice. That second one you picked up was not a choice. That was a foregone conclusion once he picked up that first one, right? So I vaguely sensed I was not being too smart. I felt reassured as I was taking whiskey on a full stomach, insane. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk. That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another. Now I'm starting to worry about how many glasses of milk this guy's having because this is going to be a horrible, horrible hangover, right? The guy's up to like 9 glasses of milk and God knows how many sandwiches. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. One more journey to the rehab for Jim. One more journey to detox for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of that intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused him. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic. He knew what alcoholism was, and he knew about the solution, and he knew that it was a spiritual solution. He made that decision, yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. And here it goes on to say, whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. And I love this definition of it. How can a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? The lack of proportion of the ability to think straight. Everybody in the Jim's life could tell him, are you kidding me? You're going to have a drink after everything has happened? And to him, it's just absolutely normal. You know, it's the insanity is a state of mind which prevents normal perception. That's what I have written here for my definition of insanity. The state of mind that prevents normal perception. Normal perception would have been, I can't have a drink. I know what that's going to do to me. Normal perception from everybody who knows Jim would be, Jim, you can't have a drink. That's not Jim's perception. That's insane. He does not have a normal perception when it comes to alcohol. If I can assess and appraise and anticipate the effect of alcohol on my behavior and on my actions, then I'm not insane when it comes to alcohol. If I cannot anticipate and appraise the what alcohol is going to do to me, the effect it's going to have on my actions, then I'm insane when it comes to alcohol. You may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched, for this kind of thinking has been characteristic in every single one of us. We have sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences, but here it is. There's always the curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning. So I'm thinking normal, just like Jim was thinking normal. Right here, I'm thinking normal. But paralleling with my sound reasoning is the insanity when it comes to alcohol. All my other thoughts are normal. I'm fine. I can make decisions. But with alcohol, it's this thought process that parallels it is all over the place. So it says there, the curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. What that tells me right there is that it is the pebble that trips me and not the boulder. I drink on the lie, and often it's very small. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. Next day, we would ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity, how could it have happened? So, I'm going to leave it right there. I told you my story about being in North Carolina with my wife who passed away. When she passed away, I was okay. I was spiritually fit at the time. I was living a life of service, and I had God in my life, and I was spiritually fit, and I did not pick up a drink when my wife passed away. I moved back from North Carolina here to Palm Beach County, and about a year after she had passed, I went out to dinner with some friends, and this girl that I was with said, well, you're not an alcoholic. Look what you've done. You took care of her. One glass of wine's not going to kill you. And she pushed a glass of wine across to me. I don't like wine. I couldn't tell you the first thing about wine. Only wine up to that point I'd ever drank was out of a box. But I remember the mental blank spot. Like I said before, I remember that insane thought was that, yeah, I'm older now. It's going to be different this time. And it wasn't. I picked up that drink. And I went out for 9 years on that one thought, on that one insane thought. I did not plan on drinking that night. And there was nothing wrong in my life. Nothing at all wrong in my life. My wife had passed away a year earlier. I had bought a house in Lantana. I was okay. Like, I would tell you that I was okay. I didn't have anything going on. When it says it's the pebble that trips us, not the boulder, when it says some insanely trivial reason, Jana passing away would have been the boulder. Nobody would have convicted me if I'd have gone out that night and gotten absolutely hammered. They'd have said, yeah, that makes sense. but that's not what happened. That queer mental blank spot after 7 years. It got me. That's what I got tonight. Let's open it up, Thomas.